So welcome to tonight's Action Coaching Club live training call. Tonight we are going to we're going to talk a little bit about how to use one-to-one coaching calls to grow your business. Welcome to the call. It's Lou Dowell here. Nice to have you here. Nice to be here with you too. So here's the flow for today's call. We're going to review the purpose and the design of what we've been calling the 1-hour consultation call. And this could take either the form of a free call or a paid call, and it could be could be an hour, could be 15 minutes, could be half an hour. I mean, it's been used in a lot of different ways, but it's based on the 1-hour consultation model that Eben teaches. So we're going to talk about two kinds of calls, and one is the I guess you would call it pure coaching call format, where the goal here really is that you're delivering an hour of coaching to your prospects or to your clients. Now, the goal at the end of that hour might be to enroll people into other products and services, or at least you might bring that up at the call. But when you're, I like to separate the two so that when you actually offer something as a coaching call, we're going to talk about how to set up the coaching call so that it really delivers value to the person that you're coaching and encourages them perhaps to stay with you a little bit longer in terms of future products and services. But the idea here is that our purpose is primarily not, this is not primarily a sales and enrollment call. It's really delivering on a value that we've offered to people normally as a paid call. Not always, but normally as a paid call. And then the other format that we'll talk about is the enrollment format. The enrollment format is is very similar to the coaching call format, except that you have a different outcome in mind. And that outcome is to determine whether you have products and services that are going to be able to help your prospect to achieve what they want. And if so, you're going to make them an offer to enroll in or to invest in your products and services. Now, this is a really important distinction to make up front because just like everything else we do, when we write landing pages, sales letters, when we create offers, when we do emails, we always want to think about the end in mind, right? We always want to have the outcome foremost in our mind so that we structure the experience, in this case, the call, to support that most wanted outcome. So I like to differentiate between the two. I don't differentiate so much between whether it's a free or paid call, because if you offer a free coaching call, then whether or not they paid is immaterial. You offered a coaching call, you want to deliver a coaching call. And in the same, by the same token, if what you offered is an enrollment call or an opportunity to evaluate whether what you have is going to help your clients get what they want, then whether that is free or paid, it doesn't matter either. Ultimately, what you're going to want to do is determine what has to happen in that call to achieve the outcome that you set out to achieve in the first place. So start with the end in mind, and today we're going to talk about primarily two ends in mind. One is to deliver coaching, one is to create enrollment. Now, a little bit of a caveat. So I talked today in the email that I sent out about how this is a process that I use with my clients and that I use for myself, and we're finding that we're getting 7 or 8 out of 10 people who show up on these calls to actually, and I'm talking primarily about enrollment calls here. We're getting 7 or 8 out of 10 people to actually say yes to the offer at the end. Now, standalone, the call itself is not the only thing that makes that work, right? This is adapted from, I have a thing that I use called the Trusted Advisor process. I teach it to my clients, my coaching clients, and I have a workshop on it. And so it's a whole process that involves setting up the preconditions to make that call successful. So in and of itself, the call is powerful and it is, very compelling in terms of achieving your outcomes, but there are things that sort of surround that call that make it more likely to get the kind of enrollments or the kind of yeses, the amount of yeses that you want. And you should also know that, as a coach, I come from the model that says we're not really trying to force people to do anything. I'm not forcing them to buy anything. I don't want them to do anything they don't feel is in their highest interest. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about is based in that philosophy. It's based in the philosophy of I want to help people come to their own decision. And if that decision is, yes, this is a good fit for me, then I want to do everything possible to help them to see how it is a good fit. But if I'm really clear that what I have isn't going to help them achieve what they want, then an important part of this whole process is to say, hey, I don't have anything else to help you. Here's a couple of other resources that I think you might want to check into. So, it's based on an entire process, but I'm pulling out essentially the heart of the process, which is what happens when people do show up for the call. So I'm not sure that we can talk specifically about the rest of the stuff because it is part of my own process, but it'll come out. I'm not going to name it specifically, excuse me, as belonging to the trusted advisor process, but I will say some things that are really important that are part of the process, but I want you to sort of listen between the lines and hear it very carefully, okay? So it is the heart of the system, and I want you to know also that you will develop a system to make this profitable for you or to make this successful for you. And we're going to talk about some of those preconditions that you have to set up, or at least that I believe you have to set up to make this particular call work really well for you. It is also based on and modified a little bit to align with what Eben teaches, because you know what we say, right? One system, one guru, one year. And I want to make sure that everything that we learn here is part of the curriculum that you've gotten, the training that you've gotten elsewhere. And besides, it's a very powerful framework and structure. So so this is adapted and it's modified, and it's kind of what I found is a great starting point for you to follow. And what I mean by that, and this is something that came up in last week's call really, when I was talking with Anthony, you know, it's really great to follow a format that people provide for you, but you've got to understand that standalone and outside of any particular context, one of these formats might work very, very well, or they might need a little bit of adjustment, a little bit of refining so that it works in the context in which you deliver it. So based on your avatars, based on your market, based on your sales process, your marketing funnel, all of these contribute to how well it works. It also is, you know, not a fixed format. It's a starting point, and you may find ways to optimize it or enhance it or change it to adapt to your audience, and you should, right? Because after all, we know that everything everything is a test. So I want you to think about this as a starting point. I want you to think about it in terms of your avatars and want you to use it and practice it and take what happens in the sessions as feedback and then maybe bring it into the coaching call so that we can think of ways and things to try to optimize and fine tune it. I mentioned in my email, you know, one of my clients who went from, you know, zero sales, well, just a little bit over, you know, I think he was making 1 or 2 sales a month, and started actively using this process. And you know, now last month, the sales as a result of this, I mean, I think directly attributable to this process were $45,000. But the way his session looks now is in many ways not what you're going to see today. We started with what you see today, and then we took the feedback and adjusted and modified and fine-tuned it until it had a really good fit. You know, because his avatar was very particular, and the more he did with the calls in the beginning, the more he was aware of what the fears, frustrations, needs, desires were, the more articulate he was about connecting the dots to show how his products and services created those, gave them what they want in terms of eliminating fears and frustrations and creating needs and desires, and struck a balance between how much content versus how much presentation. And also we worked really hard on the pre-framing, on qualifying people who came to those calls. I'm going to mention all of those elements to you, but I want you to just keep in mind what we're going to talk about is your starting point. Or maybe you're already using it like Anthony is and gotten a little further along, but I want you to always keep this in mind. Whatever you learn here is not, see, a lot of people, they will come to these courses and they'll hear this and then they go, okay, I know how it works. But actually, until you try it yourself and adapt it and refine it and take feedback from your market, that isn't necessarily going to work for you in the same way, right? So I want to really encourage you to take this on and try it, and be open to the possibility that, you know, in the beginning, maybe it's not going to go gangbusters, but that's okay. The more data you get back about what's not working, the more new things you can try that will work, and eventually you can have a finely tuned machine that's going to more predictably and reliably give you the outcome that you're going for. So the key thing is always keep your audience in mind and adapt, enhance, and evolve what you hear today to suit them. And in fact, you know, if I do another I've just finished a Trusted Advisor workshop. I'm going to just plant the seed that when I do my next one, you might consider joining it. we found tremendous results out of those workshops. We have a guy who's actually taken it offline. He's on one of these calls. He's one of the Action Coaching Club folks who just came on Trusted Advisor program, adapted it to his market, and now he's looking at. I mean, I don't want to overstate the fact, but he's talking about hundreds of millions of dollars worth of opportunity directly as a result of applying the Trusted Advisor process to an offline opportunity. So I don't have one running now, so this is not like a sales pitch or anything. I just want you to know that I do run them periodically, and if you're interested, keep your eyes open for emails related to that. And if you're not on my list already, you can go to powerupcoaching.com and get on it, and you'll know when we have the next workshop coming. I keep this workshop really affordable too. It's a great 30-day workshop, a lot of personal time and feedback from me personally, and it's like crazy affordable, which may change, but I don't know. I'll see. Anyway, so the caveat is keep your audience in mind, adapt, evolve to suit them, and then think about joining me on the next workshop. Now, the purpose of these coaching consultations, there's a number of different purposes, a number of different reasons why we want to do these coaching consultations or coaching calls. First and foremost, it's a fast, direct, and powerful way to identify and understand your customers' irrational fears, frustrations, needs, and desires. So, interestingly enough, this call, the structure that we're going to use, could literally be used explicitly and exclusively for the purpose of determining the fears, frustrations, needs, and desires of your avatar. You don't necessarily need to be providing any, specific coaching value, although you will, just as a result of the way it's set up. You don't need to be doing any enrollment in your in your other products and services, although why not? If you have someone there and it's a good fit, you can offer them. But many times you could literally just hold these calls for the purpose of really getting the finger on the pulse of your market. Now, what'll happen is, what Evan talks about is doing those $97 calls, which is a great way not only to get your finger on the pulse of the market, but also be paid for it. Because one of the best things, the best ways to figure out that we're actually on target offering people what they want is that they will actually be willing to pay for the call with us. So if they want something badly enough that they're willing to pay you for it, then you've got a good indicator that you're on track offering the kind of information or service or value that they're looking for, right? But you don't have to. You can make this exclusively a market research call. It's and it's a great way, as you see as we go through the format, to really draw out all of the fears, frustrations, needs, and desires. And if you do a good job of either recording the call or making sure that you're writing the words and the phrases that your clients use, everything about your marketing will be better. Your copy will be better, your topic selection will be better, your product creation will be better, and so on. So it's an excellent way to do that. It is the ultimate way to discover the exact words, phrases, and concepts to use in your marketing. Now, there's a phrase that you might be familiar with. It's called, enter the conversation that's already going on in your client's mind, right? Your prospect's mind. I can never remember. I can never remember who said that, but one of the great marketing and copywriter authors, Claude Hopkins, perhaps, might have been even Gary Halbert. But anyway. Nonetheless, it's a very important, really crucial element to creating great marketing, and that is that you want to connect and establish rapport with your prospect by entering the conversation they're already having in their minds. You want to use the words that they're using. Robert Collier, says Joe. Thank you, Joe. I'll take your word for that, Robert Collier. And the idea is that if you can do that, you're establishing rapport, you're creating a little bit of authority, and you're having people trust you. If you can understand them, if they feel heard, then they'll assume that you understand them well enough to offer them a solution, right? So there's a built-in authority. But even before then, just the fact that when people are reading and surfing quickly on the net, you know how we pattern match, right? Like you could walk into a room full of thousands of people and you can scan it real quickly, and then all of a sudden zooms like that robot, zooming in, and you'll find someone instantly in the face of thousands, right? So this happens when people are on the web surfing for solutions and for searching for products. They're looking for the keywords and the phrases and the experience and the discussions that's already happening between the left and right ear for them, and they'll be pattern matching. They'll scan quickly every 3 seconds, surf to another page, and boom, all of a sudden they see those words that are in their minds, and they'll stop and they'll read it and find out if what you're talking about makes sense to them. It's what they're looking for. So this is a great way to figure out what those words and phrases and concepts are. It's also an effective way to identify or target a niche, right? A niche. If you're not sure what niche to target, i.e., and by niche I mean what urgent need do you address? What urgent pain do you solve? This is a great way to do it. You can find out, first of all, who's coming to those calls of yours, right? So you can offer different calls on different topics and find out which ones get the most responses. And it's also a great way to talk to folks about their problems and their urgent pains and what they're looking for. And then when you start to see a trend, when a lot of people who are generally the same kind of people demographically, sociographically, and so on, if they're all kind of looking for the same thing, well, you know what? You may have discovered a niche in your own list or in your own group of, in your own audience. So it's a real natural way also to generate sales to bootstrap your business. So a lot of folks will go out and say, well, I don't have a product. I don't know what people need and so on. But it's pretty easy to just say, hey, $97, spend an hour with me and I'll give you great solutions to the most important challenges that you have. And if you can identify what those challenges are in advance, or at least connect with them at the level of saying, hey, I think this is what you're experiencing and I've got some ideas around that and I'd love to coach you in it. It's a great way to start generating some income. And as you start to realize that you're hitting the mark with your marketing and with your products and solutions, well, then you can start recording those calls and turn them into products. Either through webinars or whatever. So it's a great way to generate sales when you're first bootstrapping your business. It's a way to have your market research actually pay for your market development and your product development. So a great format for doing that, and that's why we recommend you use it a lot. Okay, I think we mentioned this, right? It's a great technique to discover the internal dialogue and emotions that your client is having. And the most important part of this is that you don't want to just write them down. You actually want to reflect them actively in your marketing, right? So the important thing about these calls overall is that you want to, let me see why this isn't showing up here. There we go. That's weird. Okay, you want to discard what you want, and you want to get rid of what you think they need. You want to stop believing that that you know what they feel. You just really, in these calls, more than anything, want to listen. Because that's where the power of these calls is to listen, to hear the words, the phrases, the needs, the emotions, and to very copiously and carefully record them all so that you can reflect them back, not only in the call itself, but in all of your marketing, especially when you hear that certain words and phrases and needs and emotions are coming up again and again and again from one call to the next. So the main thing here is that you're not on display. The spotlight is very firmly fixed on your prospect through these calls. And another benefit of this is, we call this poorhouse marketing, right? A lot of people, this is what the kind of marketing that keeps you in the poorhouse. When you have an idea, you create a product and then you try and sell it. Well, what this allows you to do is to go into powerful marketing, which is that you figure out what the customer's fears, frustrations, needs, and desires are, you create and promote a solution, and then once people buy stuff, then you create the product and deliver it. So we've recommended this a number of times to you in a number of different ways, and these coaching consultation calls are a great way to execute this process as well, right? So there are a lot of reasons that you want to hold this particular kind of call. The market research, get the dialogue that's going in the customer's mind, to enroll people, to give them service through providing value and coaching advice to them, by bootstrapping your business, and by using it to develop ideas for products and niches that you might want to pursue. So as you can see, really powerful methodology. Right? It's the easiest, fastest, and most effective way to do all of these things. Generally speaking, if the purpose of the call is enrollment, then you wouldn't charge for that call. If the purpose of the call is for you to provide coaching services, then you could charge for that call. And as I mentioned, if you do get people to pay for it, it's a great way to create quick sales and to prove that the market that you think is there actually is there. If you're a coach, this is also a great way to enroll people into coaching. And what you're going to notice as we talk through this is um, that what the format that we're going to recommend actually is kind of a demonstration of your coaching prowess, of your coaching ability. But there's a really big shift in the way that most coaches actually do these calls. A lot of coaches, when they offer enrollment calls or sample sessions or free sessions, as they call them, they show up like they have to be super coach, like they have to have the answer to every question. It's a lot of pressure, and very, I call it the miracle hour. Come to my free coaching call and I'm going to perform a miracle for you. Well, miracles do happen, but they're not predictable and they don't happen all that often by definitions, right? So this is a more effective way to demonstrate the kind of value you could provide in through coaching as a coach, and then enroll people into your coaching services. So it's not just for selling products, digital products, downloadable products, workshops, and so on. It's an excellent way also to enroll people into your coaching. So no matter which of these that you do, whatever your purpose is, you can't help but after doing a number of these, you can't help but to be an expert on your market and your customer. And that's the ultimate goal, right? So that when you are expert about who your avatar is and what their needs, frustrations, fears, and desires are, then everything that you do in your marketing and product development is going to work that much better. So let's talk first about coaching consultations, the whole concept of coaching consultations and what they are and how they work. A few years ago when I started out in coaching, gosh, this was probably 2004 now, nobody even knew what a coach was, much less wanted one. And, if you told people, and by the way, there were a lot of life coaches, but not so many business coaches. And so if you would walk around saying you were a life coach, you were kind of like the butt of jokes, right? This is kind of like what therapists went through when therapy first was introduced. They went through a phase where first no one understood them, then nobody wanted them, then they were the butt of the jokes, and then all of a sudden everybody has one, especially if you're in California. So that's really similar. Today, the demand for coaching is through the roof and growing every year. And so this works really well because this process now of offering a coaching session is going to be, people are going to be a lot more receptive to saying yes to that invitation than they were even a few years ago. It's still, I still think that in my experience, there has to be a bit of relationship established before people feel comfortable coming into these calls, simply because there's so much marketing that's thrown at them, and so many people doing things that are quote unquote free but disguised as sales processes that people tend to be a little bit skeptical, a little bit nervous about getting on the phone. They don't want to feel like they're going to be, obligated into buying something. And it's changed a little bit, but it's still the case. And so, especially for coaching consultations, people are actively looking for coaches now, which is a good thing. And if you have built up a relationship, established some authority, and built up some trust, then you don't have to work as hard to get people into these calls now. But what you do have to work hard at is establishing the trust and the authority and the relationship. And you'll find that people will sort of invite themselves into these calls when you let them know they're available. There's also another part of this that says, if you can't sell an hour's worth of personal coaching on a subject for $97, you probably haven't figured out what that market is yet. And we like to use these calls because they're very easy to change. Like if you want to change your focus of your niche or your solution or whatever, you just change the nature of the call, right? There's no product development, there's no big marketing spiel to change, nothing. You just kind of tell them, you're coming to this coaching call, and you create a different outcome for that call. So you get a lot of opportunity to test things quickly. And realistically, if you've built a relationship with someone and they trust you and they believe that you know what you have, but they're not willing to spend an hour with you for $97, then you probably haven't found the big enough need in that niche, and it's a good opportunity to look for more, right? So this is a good thing because now you can test and refine, because knowing that you probably won't sell ebooks, products, seminars, workshops, or anything else higher ticket until you get this part handled. And creating ebooks, products, seminars, and workshops take a lot of time and energy and sometimes money, and you have to promote and sell them and so on. So this is this is really a great way to jumpstart your business and get paid for your market research. Now, we talked about the outcomes for these calls. So typically your paid calls are going to be coaching calls. So you come and say, spend an hour with me and I will, I'll help you create the outcome that you want in this area. Lose weight, make money, get a relationship, whatever that might be. If the purpose of the call is, to evaluate whether these folks are good candidates for investing further in your products and services, typically I make these free calls, and the purpose of the call is, pretty obvious right from the front. In other words, I don't typically hide the fact that, we're getting on the call to figure out whether there's anything that I have that's of value to you, and how and if I can help you. And I don't charge for those kinds of calls. But if I'm going to do coaching, then I will charge for the calls. Enrollment calls don't always include an action, commitment, and follow-up. So if you're doing a coaching call and you want to give people some value as a coach, it's always helpful to give them some action steps that they'll commit to as a result of spending that time with you. But of course, on an enrollment call, you're not going to say, okay, here's your first step to losing weight, and do you commit to doing it, and would you like a follow-up and all that kind of stuff, because that's not what this is about. It's not about coaching. It's about assessing whether they have the need and you have the solution. So it's a little bit different. You're going to see that maybe the first 40% of the call structure is the same, and it's the last 50 or 60% that's going to differ because of the different outcomes. And also, coaching calls don't always include an offer to enroll. In other words, if I'm offering you an hour-long coaching call, I may or may not invite you to enroll in a product or service at the end of that call. If I think there's something that I can recommend that's going to be very helpful, and it happens to be one of my products, then of course I'll recommend it. If it's someone else's products, I may recommend it as well. But typically the recommendation is really on the basis of what you discover in the coaching call, and it seems like it's a viable resource, a very valuable resource to help the client accomplish what you're coaching them on. So coaching calls, in my case anyway, don't always include an offer to enroll, but I do leave the possibility open. So if I figure it's in the client's best interests, if what they're trying to do is something that I help people to do, then I always ask permission to tell them a little bit about it, and then I invite them. But very oftentimes those calls are really just to be of service, and then also to get a better understanding of what they need, what they want, what they fear, and what they worry about. Okay, so that's the way that's the way I do it. You may find that it'll work better to do paid coaching calls. I typically do half-hour calls. You may choose to do 15-minute, 45-minute, 1 hour. It really is up to you, your personality, the kind of energy you like to hold on a call, and so on. I usually like to make space for people to wander around a bit. I don't want them to feel constrained by time. I like to keep the pace going, but I also want to have the time to answer questions and not feel like I'm rushing them through, either rushing them through a coaching call or rushing them through a sales process. So typically I reserve about half hour for those calls personally. And coaching calls up to an hour, depending on the fee. So the coaching call format, let's start with that. We're going to talk about when you offer a $97 call, for example, and it's more than just a market research call, but it's not specifically an enrollment call. Okay, this is the what I call coaching call formats, and I'm assuming that you'll be paid for this. I'm also assuming that you have in the back of mind the possibility that once you finish coaching, if you figure you can really help people, beyond the level that you've helped them on the call, that you will open the possibility of inviting them into your programs, right? So one thing that I talked about, and I really want you to avoid when you're inviting people into this call, is setting it up to be the miracle hour. The purpose for you to show up as a coach is not to have every answer to every problem and create complete transformation and a miracle, and the waters won't part and the skies won't turn blue just because you have this call. Now, it does happen sometimes if the client or the prospect is in the right state of mind and just happens to be right at that point where they're ready for it, that you can have a little miracle happen. Absolutely. If you create the space for them, if you hold it, if you create and hold a space for them to do that, and they're ready to do it, it can happen. However, I don't want you to promote it that way. I don't want you to make it sound like the expectations are so high for this call that they're going to pay you $97 and walk away with $1 million business, for example. If it shows up that way, great. If they get an idea for it, but I don't want you to be a dog and show. What do they call it? Um, a dog and pony show. I don't want you to be entertainment. I don't want you to be performing. What I want you to do is to just show up and help understand as much as possible where people need help, and then to offer help in the best way that you can, and allow them to either accept or decline that help. Okay, so when you promote these things and when you name them, because I think you should name your session, don't call it like the $6 million minute or anything like that, right? Or a $6 million hour. You can call it a makeover, an accelerator. You can call it a refresher, or you can call it a boot start, a quick start, a jump start. You call it whatever you like. Just don't set the expectation that all of their problems are going to be solved on this call. And you also want, as part of your process when they're coming in, have them prepare 1, 2, or 3 things that are really most important for them to talk about. In your process for getting them on the call, give them a little questionnaire or have them send you an email. Ask them 2 or 3 questions to prepare their thinking so that they're focused, so that they know when they come on the call that you're going to talk about 1 or 2 or 3 things. You're not going to be there, basically getting into depth on every issue that they have and giving them help on those things, right? So, so there's that. Now, unless you create space, you create resistance. So what do I mean by that? So what I mean is that the best thing that you can do, as opposed to showing up and giving advice, is showing up and asking questions and digging deep and empathizing, establishing rapport, connecting, having compassion, acknowledging, affirming them, and making people feel heard. If you create the space for them to take themselves where you want to go, in other words, just put little rose petals down the path and let them choose to follow it, what I found is what I find is that the more I ask questions and the more I acknowledge them and the more I let them know that I've heard them, the safer they feel, the more relaxed they are, the less resistant they are, and the more that they know that I'm really there to help them and not just to make a buck. Now, this is a big, big thing, because people, as soon as they sense that your only intention is like, if everything that you do has the undertone of I'm only doing this so that in the end you're going to buy something, people get that, right? They'll sense it. And the best thing that you can do is a coaching call format, especially, is just totally get rid of all of that. And we'll talk about ways that you could do that. But so this is really important. So you want to avoid the idea that you're going to show up and perform miracles, and you also want to show up not as someone who tells people what they need to do, but rather asks people what their challenges are and what they want. So listen much more than you talk, especially in the first half of the call. The guy who was who taught me as a coach, who trained me as a coach and was my mentor and teacher, used to have this phrase. It was really kind of cute. He would always, it was an acronym that he created. It was called WAIT. And it stood for, why am I talking? Right? And so I would have this little folded piece of cardboard on my computer as I was coaching, and I always look down. If I found myself talking and talking about me and my solutions and how this worked for me and my life and all the rest of it, I looked down and it would say, wait, why am I talking? And it reminded me to just stop, slow down, take a deep breath, and refocus back to the prospect, back to the client. So in the coaching call format, this is one of the most powerful things that you can do, right? And what you're wanting to do is you're going to want to ask questions that elicit their irrational fears and desires. So why is that? Well, first of all, it's going to help you to understand your market and to understand what you can do to help them, either now or later through programs and services. But the other thing is that these are the things that are bothering them the most. This is what's keeping them up at night. If you could help them move forward somehow on 1 or 2 of these things, could mean a world of benefit to them. And you can establish more trust, more authority, more value in just being able to help them to handle one of the things that's consuming them irrationally than any product or service that you could, no blog post, no video post, no teleseminar, nothing is going to have the impact of creating the kind of trust and gratitude and reciprocity as if you can just open the valve and let the steam out on one of the things that's bubbling and boiling up inside and has been for some time. So of course, in order to do that, you need to understand what they are before you can help anyone, right? They say that prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. And so we want to diagnose, we want to understand before we give them any kind of support. So first understand and then coach. Okay, so let's dig into the step by step of how you will accomplish these goals. So first of all, establish rapport and create a place of comfort for your client, for your prospect. And you can do this by, oops, hold on one second, I'll be right back. Okay, you can do this by, just the standard kind of social graces. Introduce yourself, have them introduce themselves to you, a little bit of small talk, get to know them, who they are. You just kind of, it's good to know who it is you're connecting with. Create a little connection and rapport. Also be sensitive here in neurolinguistics programming or NLP. They talk about this concept of pacing and leading, which basically says that the fastest way for you to establish rapport is to match the energy of your clients. So if they come in really hyper and excited, enthusiastic, and so on, raise your energy. Be enthusiastic and hyper, as much as is authentically possible for you. But raise your energy to their level. If they come in quiet, relaxed, mellow, even slightly sad, then lower your energy and connect with them at the energy that they happen to be at. Now, what you will find is that once you connect at that energy, that you have the opportunity then, once they feel like, oh yeah, you're like me, then you have the opportunity to influence them into a higher energy if you choose to do that. But the fastest way to establish rapport really is just to match the energy, match the dialogue, just find all the things that you have in common that you can agree with. And once you find that that element of common interest and common connection, then it becomes a whole lot easier. The other thing I like to do is allow some time for the client to become present. Now, sometimes I'll do this quite intentionally. I'll say, all right, let's just take 30 seconds and come into the moment, come into the present moment, and I'll do a little bit of maybe some breathing, some focused breathing, some just some visualization to get them relaxed. Perhaps maybe I'll even sometimes, depending on if they sound really distracted, I'll get them to have to get a piece of paper and say, just take a minute and write down everything that's on your mind right now, and just give them a minute to write it all down, to empty their minds, and then a couple of deep breaths, and then say, awesome. So, what's your intention for today, right? And bring them away from all of the distractions, all of the frantic energy, all of the pulls on their attention, the demands on their time that they're trying to get away from, and allow them to just relax and become present and grounded, so that you can have a really good coaching call. And then be sure that you do the same for yourself, of course, and whenever possible, give yourself the kind of structure in your day so that you can be relaxed and open on the call, that you don't have your mind going in 1,000 different places, and that you're not, distracted and thinking about something else. Show up as confident, as present, and relaxed as possible, and be open to whatever's going to happen, and allow, in fact, not just allow, but invite the client to do the same. It's interesting, but I find that this is true even with my clients, that the best coaching calls often happen when we just spend 30 seconds to a minute at the beginning of the call, just slowing down, just becoming present, becoming focused, and shaking off everything else that's going on in the world, so that we can say, this time is just for coaching. I find that clients can get a lot more resourceful, a lot more creative, and a lot more intentional just from that first 30 seconds to a minute. Okay, so establish some rapport, and then bring people into the present moment and get them comfortable and relaxed. The second thing is, and this is really important, is to set expectations. So this is something that a lot of people kind of overlook, and I think it's probably the most important thing to do. I think about this a lot as a metaphor, as an analogy. When we talk about marketing and we say, for example, Google talks about relevance, and now Facebook is talking about relevance and so on. And what they mean is the importance of having the expectations set and met at every step of the way. So if you're running an ad and it promises something, so first of all, we establish rapport by using the keywords or the images that people already have going on in their minds, so that they're likely to notice our ad, and then read it and understand that we're offering them something that they want. Then they click on the ad, and we say the next most important thing that you can do there is to have the landing page very accurately reflect and be relevant to what was promised in the ad, so that the more the landing page delivers on the promise of the ad, the more likely people are going to opt in. And then when they opt in, then the first thing that you want to do is deliver the thing that you promised to them before you move them on to something else, right? So it's this thing about relevance and then continuity, being consistent, consistently setting and meeting expectations. And so this is really important for you to do during a coaching call. And in this case, you want to talk about what it is that you're intending to do and maybe the process of what's happening, so that in this way, both you and your client are in agreement. And what this does is, if there are any questions, or if there's any, sometimes people will wonder, well, is this a coaching call or not? Or is this a sales call or not? Then what it allows you to do is say, okay, here are my intentions for our time together. Here's what I think we're going to do. Is this why you showed up today? And it gives you a chance to sort of clear the air and remove any of those nagging doubts, again, to help people become fully present. It also, if it is something that at the end you're going to create any kind of enrollment, it's a great opportunity to set that expectation. So you can set the expectation for that outcome. You can say, today is all about coaching. I'm going to help you to solve the 2 or 3. We're going to talk about the 2 or 3 things that you mentioned in your email. We're going to work on them, brainstorm them, about them. I'm going to give you my best ideas about them, and I'm going to ask you to take some action. Are you willing to commit to taking some action? Yes, great. And then at the end of this time, if I see that there's an opportunity that I could be of more help to you on an ongoing basis, then would it be okay if I shared some of the ways that I can do that? And you can say it any way you want. Shared some of the ways that I help people to do that, or can I share about my products and services with you? Can I tell you more about how I help people accomplish that outcome, and so on? However you like to phrase it, is okay. Be consistent with your own energy. But this is, if you do it here, it allows people to really understand why they're there, and most importantly, you want to get agreement on that, right? So it's really important, and this is, I guess, a little bit of a sales process, but it's an influence process, is that you don't want to rush through and making assumptions that people agree with you, because what's going to happen is when you get to the end, the thing that they didn't agree with is going to be playing on their mind all the time, and you're going to assume or pretend or act as if they had agreed, and everything you do from there on in becomes ineffective, because all they can think about is, I didn't agree to that, I didn't agree to that, right? And so you're in a place of resistance. And so my goal is to eliminate all the resistance so that they can be fully present and experience what it is that we're going to do. I want them to be fully engaged in that way. So if you don't get agreement, then stop, don't pass go. Find out why not, find out how you can renegotiate it so that they feel comfortable agreeing to it. And then, if you wanted to create a situation where you thought it was an enrollment call, they thought it was a coaching call, then you also have the opportunity and the right to say, that really wasn't my expectation, and I don't do that for free. And then you can choose from there what you want to offer them as an alternative. So it's really important for them and for you that you both feel like you're interested in being served in this call. Now, I think it's important for you to really have a clear outcome, but for me, I always find that, I can't script that call. So I provide a little bit of leeway. So if they say, well, I was kind of thinking that we were going to do this and that, as long as it doesn't derail me from the principal outcome, I will usually agree to it, but I want to make sure that it doesn't derail me. So there's a tendency, by the way, this is not the time for you to just be a yes man. Your job, or your yes person, I guess, your job in this coaching call is to be strong and confident and lead, and to provide excellent support. But if you're being very wishy-washy and agreeing to the customer's agenda at all points, then you're really not providing the kind of leadership that you need to. So you need to make a judgment call here and come from a place of strength and resolve. Don't do it from a place of wanting to please your client, or wanting them not to feel like you're taking command. Some clients will actually challenge you just to show themselves that you have what it takes to guide them, to lead them. So be strong here. You can say no. It's up to you. It's your call. when you don't think it serves you or it doesn't serve the client. So you can certainly be flexible. You can restructure. You can renegotiate. How you're doing things. But in your mind, be very clear about why you're there and what it is that you want to accomplish, and make sure that you don't derail from that. And get permission in advance for your call to action. So if you know that you're going to have a call to action at the end, this is a great time, as I said earlier, to put it on the table and say, this is what I would like to do at the end of our call. Is it okay for us to do that? If you get permission, and most people will give you permission, whether it's paid or not. I mean, if they're there and they really have a problem, they got some value, why wouldn't they want to know about how else you can help them? And especially if it's a free call. Really hard for someone to spend a half hour, an hour getting great support from you, and then not at least allowing you a couple minutes to tell them about your products and services. So more often than not, you'll find that they'll agree to that. But just the fact that you stated it, and the fact that they agreed to it, relieves, again, you're letting out the steam. You're relieving the tension that they may be holding about, oh gosh, is everything that's going to go on this call designed to get me to buy something at the end? Right? You want them trusting the coaching process. Then you want to dig into your process, and you want to start asking some questions. Some of the questions you might want to ask is, how did you get to this point? What's your story? What's going on for you? How did you get here? How is it showing up? Where is it showing up in your life? What does it mean to you? For me, this is really about associating them. This part of the call is really about getting them to understand that what their problems are, and that, in fact, that they do have these problems, and then to reassociate them with the pain of not eliminating those problems, or to reassociate them with the pain of not experiencing the outcomes that they want. And hear me very carefully here. I'm not wanting to manipulate them into feeling pain. That's not what I said. And I want to be really clear about this. What I'm wanting them to do is to be aware of the pain they're already experiencing, or the conflict or the frustration, so that we can then identify it as something to resolve. Okay, so we're not manipulating their emotions. What we're doing is bringing their emotions to the surface. So you might want to ask, what's your biggest challenge or frustration? What is it that's keeping you up at night? What is it you're worrying about? Or what is it that you want to do that you've been unable to do so far that's brought you here? And you might have, you might do this, what are your top 3 frustrations? Or you might iterate through this process one question at a time. I personally like to iterate through it, because if we run out of time, then hopefully we've at least addressed the most important things on their minds. And another part of this is, when I ask them about this challenge or frustration, again, for me, it's about association. I don't want them to just say, oh, I'm having this challenge, right? I want to understand what it means to them. I want to understand it because it helps me to create better solutions and to improve my marketing. Okay, that's one element of it. But also because I want them to really understand what it's costing them to not resolve this. I want to associate them with the pain or the cost of the challenge that they're not resolving. So I want them to really be in that moment of, this is really an irritation that I don't want in my life, and because then if I can help them resolve it, then clearly they're going to feel like we've accomplished something significant, right? So what's your biggest challenge or frustration? Where does it show up in your life, and what does it mean to you that this is going on for you? What impact does it have, positive or negative, on your life? And then we don't want to leave them in that state of frustration and despair. We want to also then talk about, what's your ideal outcome? What would you rather be experiencing than what you are experiencing, and what would that look like? And again, now I want to associate them with the pleasure of experiencing that outcome, because I want them to feel how important it is for them to move from the current experience to their aspired experience. And not just at an intellectual level, I want them to really get it at an emotional level, again, because it'll have greater value to them, and it'll motivate and inspire them to make change, but also because then I can understand where the leverage points are that I need to bring up when I'm communicating to others about what the benefits of solving this are, what the benefits of my products and programs are. And again, of course, it always has an impact on decisions that I make about how I create products and programs, to make sure that they address these pains and these desires, right? So what's your ideal outcome in detail and specifically? Then I always like to ask the question, what have you tried that hasn't worked? So, and this accomplishes a few things as well. So this tells me the things that they've tried, because if I'm going to offer them the same things that they've already tried and it hasn't worked, well, clearly they're going to say, well, it hasn't worked before, why would it work now? And so I want to know that. The other thing is, by answering this question, they're kind of also reinforcing to themselves, geez, I've tried a lot of things, and boy, would it be really great or what to get this handled once and for all. So there's a couple of different reasons for that. And then also, you might ask them, well, why do you think it hasn't worked? And that's a really interesting question, because then you'll start to realize where their center, their locus of control is. If they tell you, well, I just don't find myself finishing up on those things, or the program, I tried it, but it wasn't for me, and I chose otherwise. You can sort of get that they're not taking action, but they're taking responsibility for not taking action. If they say this program sucks, all the gurus are taking advantage of me, nothing is significant, well, they're coming from sort of a victim mentality, and that is going to play a role in how you present your solution as well. So it's good to understand kind of where they're at. Again, no judgment here, right? It's not about right or wrong, whether they feel like they're in the victim or responsibility mode. It's just important to understand it so your communication is effective. And then this is an interesting one too. What have you tried that's worked? So they might tell you things that has worked. And one of the great parts about this is, if you find that certain things work well for them, and you know that your product offers those kinds of things as well, whether it's, I really like, watching videos online, and, being able to, have my iPad in bed and just do it late at night when I'm relaxed and I can take it all in. And if that's the way that you happen to offer something, then then you'll be able to, emphasize that. You'll also find out about the kinds of behaviors that they like to engage in willingly, so that if you're going to ask them to take action at the end of this coaching call, which you will, then you're likely going to offer them a solution that has worked for them in the past, that might be motivating for them to actually deliver and complete on, and get some results with, right? So you're noticing these questions really are for you to thoroughly understand not only the problems, the challenges, and the aspirations your client has, but also how do they tick? How do they see the world? Because if you're going to coach them into solution, you're going to want to play to their strengths when you invite them to take action, and you're going to give them resources, tips, ideas, brainstorms that play to their strengths and not to their weaknesses. And you're also going to have an opportunity, if you see that there's a mindset or a belief or a value system or behavior that they're engaged in, you might challenge them to change that as a way to moving forward. So again, the more you understand about them, the better you're going to be able to coach them, and of course, the more you're going to be able to determine how to create your products and services later. So some people don't know this, but it's always good to ask, what motivates and demotivates you to take action? So, some people are aware of it, right? And some will say, I like it when, for example, I'm motivated to go to the gym if I have a buddy to go with me, right? So that's a good thing to know. I'm motivated to, to write sales copy if I'm in a mastermind group. I'm motivated, whatever it might happen to be. I'm motivated to work out in the morning if I can do it in 10 minutes before work. And what demotivates you? Well, if I have to go to the gym after work, drive, get a babysitter, blah, 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 I probably won't do it. And some people might say, I don't like working in a group because I feel like, I don't have enough say, or I don't have enough control, and I don't like to compromise. I prefer to just, make my own choices and move forward. And so again, the more you can sort of get a sense of what makes them tick and what makes them perform, the better your offer to act at the end of it is going to be. So what you're looking for here is you're trying to figure out all the different ways that you can come up with a solution and an action plan that is going to give them the most leverage towards getting what they want and when they want it. And then of course from a coaching point of view, so this is the sort of the pre-commitment here, where you say, if you agree to do something on this call, can I count on you to do it? And this is a question I actually learned from Eben, and I love it. And it's basically I don't want to say painting someone into a corner, but it's basically saying, look, I'm gonna give you something to do. I'm going to give you action. I'm going to give you a solution, and I'm going to ask you to make a commitment. And are you willing to make that commitment? Um, Now, you kind of have to remember everything that goes on in someone's mind for them to be able to say yes to this, right? I mean, they're going to, in an instant, it's going to be, there's going to be this conversation in their head that says, oh God, a commitment. I don't know. This sounds like accountability. Geez, I've tried all this stuff. I don't want to. Why should I commit to it? Then I have something else that, they have all of that dialogue going on. And especially if they've been, challenged with this problem. And then at some point they're going to say, yeah, I'm ready to. And once they say, yes, you can count on me to do it, uh, just the exercise, the mental exercise it took to overcome that dialogue and then make the choice, the conscious choice to say, yes, I'm going to do something about it, is massive. It's huge, right? It's this great internal game that they're playing with themselves that basically puts that, the voice of stay where you are and stay put, quiets it and puts it aside and says, I'm ready to do something. So first you've quote unquote painted them into the corner by saying, okay, you said you were going to do this, right? And you said I can count on you, right? So you're creating a little consistency and commitment. And also you're allowing them that process where they can come to the point of saying, sure, I'm ready to do it. Now, why is this important from a coaching point of view? Because if they're not ready to do it, no amount of feedback, suggestion, action plan, whatever is going to help them, right? And it's possible that they may say, no, I can't count on you to do that. Well, again, don't move forward. No point getting to the point where you're going to give them an action plan. Stop right here and ask, well, can I ask why? What is it about taking action that you're not willing to commit to? You're here to help resolve the problem. Where does this resistance come from? Is it something that we want to clear before we talk about the action plan? Right? And so get to the root of the problem. Don't let them off the hook. Okay, again, this is part of the coaching process, and you're there to help someone move forward, to accomplish something beyond the levels that they've been able to accomplish. This is a fantastic question, and it's one that I highly recommend you use at this point. So assuming that they say, yes, you can count on me to do it, then you're going to offer your solution. And what I like to do here that's really important is to reflect back what I've heard using the exact phrases and words that the client uses, both in terms of describing their challenges, their greatest frustrations, the emotions around it, the aspirations that they have, the emotions around those aspirations. And what I'm wanting to do is, number one, let them know that I heard them, and number two, establish rapport. And number three, make sure that I'm on track, right? So I'm going to say, all right, here's what I think I heard you say. You're having this challenge, and here's the way it's showing up in your life, and this is what it means for you to keep experiencing it. This is the impact that you're having, and what you would much rather have is, and then describe it. And I'm going to be I'm going to be reflecting the same words. Now, there may be ways that I would prefer to say it, but that's not important right now. If I've been doing a good job of taking really copious notes as he or she's been talking, I'm going to have the opportunity to reflect that all back. Nothing is more important than someone feeling validated and heard, I promise you. And so if you reflect them back and they say, yep, that's exactly right, now you're ready to recommend some action. Because now they've been heard, they feel validated, you understand their solution problem, you understand what they're after, you know their experience. Now what you're going to recommend is very likely going to be a great opportunity for them to move forward on this. And so you can request the action. So great, I'm glad, glad that we're on track together, and based on what you've told me about, wanting to lose weight or wanting to create a business, whatever, I like to recommend a technique and some action steps. And then you give them your best technique or action steps. And at this point, you really just want to brainstorm with them. This is what I recommend you do. How does that feel? Does it seem like something you want to do? Can you see how it would create the outcome for you? And so on. Just kind of be in that moment until they go, great. Okay, sounds like sounds like a plan. At that point, you're wanting to get the commitment, right? And so once they sort of buy into it and you say, well, if you will do this, and by the way, in brackets here, when I have eliminate the fear, the desired outcome, these are all the words that they used to express these things to you, right? Again, so if you will do this, you will never feel fat and depressed and unable to resist food again. You will get that slim, trim, fit, sexy body that you've always wanted to, that will allow you to show up positively and confidently in social situations, at work, and attract the, exude the kind of confident sensuality that's going to attract your life mate. And will you give me your word that you'll do the things we talked about by whenever, next week, the week after, and so on, Okay, so if you'll do this, you'll eliminate the fear, you'll get what you aspire to. It will allow you to do the things that motivate you and not do the things that demotivate you. Will you give me your word that you'll do it? And then you time box them. You give them a time frame for which they need to complete. And again, you don't want to move forward until they say yes. Now, as a coach, you don't want to be stuck with this. I mean, what you really ideally would like is for them to create the solution. And so, if they say, well, yeah, but I would rather do it, next week, or I think maybe it's not so important that I do this in this way. I'd rather, fine, whatever, as long as you believe it's going to help them accomplish it, help them create their own structure, use their own resources, whatever it is that they feel it's the solution that they can buy into. This is really important. And then, of course, this is why it was important before to say, if you tell me you're going to do something, can I count on you to do it? Okay, because now you're going to say, will you give me your word that you'll do it by this time? So these are subtle little things, but they mean a lot. When you use words like commitment, can I count on you? Will you give me your word? I mean, these are small little phrases that go deep in our psyche, right? And if I know they do for me. And if I say, yes, I give you my word, or yes, you can count on me, it creates this kind of internal accountability, this desire for me to stay true to my word, right? And this is going to help me to overcome any resistance or obstacles that I put in my way to prevent me from getting where I want. It's kind of like an accountability buddy that I have from the inside out. So really, really powerful coaching process. And then this is probably as important as anything else, is to say, congratulations, I'm proud of you, right? I'm really proud that you've decided to take the step to really make a change and go for the things that you want in your life. This sentence, I'm proud of you, has brought grown men to tears. And I'm talking about successful multi-million-dollar speakers, trainers, authors. And if I can, and especially if I'm with them, and I can just look them in the eye and say, I'm proud of you. 40 years old, 50 years old, 60 years old, nothing feels as powerful as being acknowledged and recognized. And so please, end your coaching session with an acknowledgement of your client. Another thing that I really love is the phrase, I believe you. I believe you can do it. So many people that are told what they can't do and why they can't, and nobody has faith in them and trust in them. And, you might choose to say, I believe you. I believe you can do that. It is a powerful phrase. Okay, and then you close the call simply by establishing a follow-up method. Do you want them to, write you an accountability email once a week? Do you want them to keep you posted? Will there be a follow-up call, and so on? And then you can be open to suggesting more consultations or longer-term engagement if it feels like the right thing to do. So, 99% of the call is all about coaching, and then the last 1% can be, hey, by the way, is this, how did you experience today, and is this the kind of structure that you think would support you going forward, and is that something that you'd like to talk about doing with me? Okay, there's no hard sell, no push, no nothing. It's all just asking, hey, was this powerful for you? Did you find value in it? Is it something you want to continue to do? And would you like me to tell you more about how? Nice and simple. And if they say no, okay, great. I'll follow up with you as we determined by our accountability plan, and I'll look forward to great results. Now, oftentimes, people will say, sometimes I found that they will say no to this because some people just don't want to say yes on the spot. It's just kind of their decision-making process. And rather than pushing and going into, well, why and how come, I don't want to go into sales mode here because we just finished a coaching call. I want to continue to hold that space. And oftentimes what I'll find is that they'll either call the day or two after, or on the follow-up call, and they'll say, this is really great. I think I'm ready to talk about a longer-term engagement. I think the fact that you hold yourself in integrity, hold the space of coaching, and provide real value here is important. If you create the results to help them move forward, important. And most of all, if you show them that you believe in them, that you trust them, that you believe they'll accomplish, and that you acknowledge how proud you are of them, that they are committing to this change, that really sets the groundwork for them to come to you and say, yeah, I thought about it, and I do want to work with you some more. Okay, so that's the first format, the coaching call process, and it's again not primarily intended as an enrollment call, primarily intended as your coaching call. And this, by the way, you can structure this into 20 minutes, 40 minutes, 60 minutes. You can set it up as a free call, a $27 call, a $97 call, a $197 call. You know, that's all up to you and your market and where you are with your confidence and your expertise. But when you're in the call, please follow this process, at least as a starting point. I think you'll find it tremendously powerful as a coaching tool, as a way to deliver value, and as a way to really understand the deepest emotional needs, desires, fears, and frustrations of your clients. So let's switch gears a little bit now and talk about the enrollment call. So the purpose of the enrollment call is it does have an element of coaching, but really you're not here to give people an action and ask for accountability. What you're really wanting to do is just determine if the fears, frustration, needs, and desires of your prospects are a match to the kinds of solutions that you offer through your products and services. And if they are, to enroll them in the products and services that you most highly recommend to help them get what they want. Now, there's a lot in this sentence, right? This is all about figuring out what they really need, checking in with yourself to come from a place of integrity that says, yeah, I really can help them, and then to recommend the things that you think most can help them. Sometimes you're going to find that it's not your products and services. And hopefully at that point, you will recommend, you will refer them on to resources, products, and services that will help them get what they want. But I kind of think of it as a discovery coaching process, right? So I'm coaching them by asking them the questions and getting, establishing the rapport and getting into the fears and frustrations, the needs and desires, understanding their outcomes that they want and all that kind of thing. But really, we know that we're both interested, myself and the prospect, we're interested in evaluating which, if any, of my solutions are a good fit for them to help them accomplish what they want. Now, I mentioned earlier that one of the most important things, and we'll talk about this in the key success factors, one of the most important elements to this is that when they show up, they know that this is an enrollment call, and that a lot of the stuff that we've done in the coaching call may have happened in other situations. It may have happened in a group coaching call. It may have happened on a free webinar. It may have happened on, through the blog interaction, something, right? So there's a way to create that kind of coaching relationship or that value-added solution providing relationship to the bulk of your audience as a group, right? To the tens of thousands of people or hundreds of thousands of people on your list, with the aim to getting them to the point where they want to show up on this call. And all they really want to know is, they've already established that you know what you're doing. They already developed trust in you. They already, have had a lot of experience hearing you solve problems like the ones that they have. Now they just want you to show them that you get them, because everybody feels like their situation is entirely different than everyone else's. So they want to come on this one-on-one call so that they can be validated, that you can say, I get it. Yes, I understand you. And as it turns out, what I do can help you, and here's how. Okay, so they've already selected themselves. What we're trying to discover here is what is it that is their most urgent need, their biggest desire, and then which of your products and services might be the best fit to help them accomplish that. Okay, so I don't hide the fact that these are enrollment calls. I make it really clear right up front, and because I want people to show up. My marketing model is I do all of the trust building to the group en masse. And so when they come to this call, they're already pre-sold. A lot of people show up and say, where's the darn order button, right? Because I don't have sales pages online. I do this all through enrollment calls. So here's how this process will work. The first part of your process is going to be pretty much the same, right? You're going to establish rapport and set expectations, ask questions. You don't necessarily have to get their commitment about taking action, right? Because that's not what this call is about. But the first, 3 or 4 parts are going to be pretty much the same thing. You want to really understand what it is that they're trying to accomplish, what they want to eliminate, what they want to manifest, and then you can jump to the offer the solution part. And this is going to be a little bit different. So instead of, like in the coaching call, you might have said, based on what you've told me, here's what I recommend you do, right? This is the next step. This is the first action step you can take. Here, instead, what you're going to do is you're going to offer a product, a service, or a program that you have that if they invest in it, might help them to accomplish either a short-term or long-term goal. So, but the format is really very similar, right? Based on what you told me about, and then just reflect back their fears and desires. And so based on the fact you told me that you're experiencing this and it has this impact, and you've tried all this stuff and nothing works, and now you're ready to create this outcome, because if you create this outcome, your life will change in this way. And you're again reflecting everything they told you. Then you can say, I'd like to recommend a program that I believe is going to help you, and then again create the outcome that you want, right? Again, reflect their words so that you can feel better, show up bigger, be proud, have self-esteem, accomplish what you want, and so on. And so much the same format, but it's not designed to give them action. It's designed to say, I've got something that can help you do these things, and then would you like to hear more about that? Again, I always like to get permission so that they don't feel like they're being sold to. I want them to ask me to tell them about it. And then of course I tell them about the program. And this is something that I do, especially with my coaching and so on. And by the way, if you're a little bit skittish about selling, or you've got some head trash going on about is selling is bad or marketing is bad, and I don't want to push people and manipulate them into making decisions, this is a fantastic thing for you to be aware of. This question: how do you feel that this program might benefit you? And then you don't have to say a word from there, because now what's going to happen is, if they've been listening to you describe the program and you've done a good job of relating your features and benefits to their outcomes, their fears and frustrations, needs and desires, they're going to sell you and themselves on which parts of the program are most valuable to them, how they're going to help them. And all you're doing is allowing them to well, basically sell themselves. So you don't have to push your benefits, you don't have to push the solutions, you just have to educate them on what your product does, what it's designed to do, what it's done for other people, how it works, etc., etc. And then you might say to them, how do you feel this program might benefit you? Or sometimes you might even say, which of these options do you feel is the best one for you? And they'll tell you, and you might say, well, why do you think that's so? Why do you feel that that's going to benefit you? And they'll do all of the selling. And the truth is, they have to do this anyway. Like, don't you find that when you make a decision, there's a part of your brain that kind of goes through that whole justification, that rationalization about why you want this thing and why it's a good idea to buy it and everything else? Okay, great. So all you're allowing them to do is to vocalize that. And if they're pre-qualified and they show up already, predisposed and have a relationship with you and so on, and the emotional part is handled, now you're just allowing them to work through the rationalization to themselves, and in the end, they will be at the point where they go, yep, they're going to tell you all the reasons why, and you might say, yep, I agree. That's exactly how I feel. And then let's get you started. Let's get you into the system, whatever your line is. And you could either say, okay, great, let's get you started, or you could say, yep, I agree. So would you like to get started? Okay, depending on how much you want to lead them, you can either ask them the question, would you like to get started? Or you say, great, we're on the same track. Let's get you started. And you start enrolling them, grab the credit card and book the first appointment. Or, take them to the web page and get them to buy the product, or whatever your process is. In this case, I'm thinking, for me, it's mostly enrolling them into coaching. So, we usually start with, let's set your first appointment, and then just walk them through what's going to happen. Okay, you're going to get this email, and you're going to fill in this form, and you're going to want this back by such a time, and then I'm going to send you an email with all the logistics for how this works and everything. Whatever that process is, you become kind of your own autoresponder after you set the first appointment or you make the sale, so that you get people, again, setting their expectations, so when their expectations are met, they feel like they've been fulfilled. And then, of course, I love to, again, the acknowledgement part is real big for me, and I usually say, congratulations, I'm proud of you for committing to creating the life or the business that you want, depending on what we're talking about. Or I might say, for committing to finally eliminating this from your life, or for committing to finally making this happen in your life. And I'm sure that what we talked about is going to help you. I'm really proud of you for committing to it. And then just close the call. Here you call me, or I call you, or you're going to get an email with the download link or whatever your logistics are. And then if you're a coach and you've set an appointment, I'm looking forward to working with you. Speak to you on Tuesday or whenever you set the appointment. Okay. Okay, and that's about it. Now, this is designed for enrolling people into coaching, but when you offer the solution to get the commitment, if you say, great, let's get you started on the program. If your program is a digital product, then hopefully you're going to be in the position to be able to take a credit card over the phone so that you can enroll them. You don't really, if you could avoid it, you wouldn't want them to have to then go log in, go to your web page, et cetera, et cetera. You want to be able to just take a credit card and process the order for them. So let's talk about some of the things I think are key success factors to making this work. Some of these are, part of what I would call the trusted advisor process. Some are just, common sense, and some of them I just want to highlight because I think they're important and I don't want you to miss them. So first of all, knowing your avatar and having awesome solutions for them, it all starts here, right? If you're not offering something that solves a real problem or meets a real need, and you're not offering a solution that works, or you're not offering a solution that's investable. In other words, how much they're having to invest compared to how much benefit they're getting. If that's not a good ratio, well, all of this stuff is meaningless, because you may close a few sales, but you won't build a business out of it. So knowing your avatar, knowing what they want, and then having awesome solutions to help them get them, that's a key success factor. That's probably number one on your list. If you don't have something that they want right away, then use this process to discover what it is that they want, with the intention of creating that awesome solution as soon as possible. Probably the biggest thing for me, though, is to qualify who you accept into your calls. So, and we talked a little bit about this with Anthony, and it's been last week, and this has been probably my greatest learning in terms of using this to great effect, and to converting at the ratio of 70 to 80% instead of 0, 10, or 15%. I really want to make sure that the people who are coming to this call, number one, have the same expectations that I do. And number two, that they're qualified, that they actually have something that I can help them with, right? So in the beginning, the way I was trained coming out of coaching school, because they were coaches, they weren't business people, right? So they said, just offer a free call, a free session to anybody and everybody, and they're going to be so bowled over by the experience of coaching that they're going to sign up with you automatically. And well, I just found out that that's not true, because not everybody was looking for a coach, and not everybody had thought about that idea, and not everybody who wanted to be coached by a male, and not everybody who wanted to be coached, if they did, necessarily wanted to get coached on the subject that I was coaching on. So I spent a lot of time. Well, I didn't spend a lot of time, because I get this stuff pretty quick, right? After about a week or two of just talking to anybody, I said, well, great, I'm not just going to talk to anybody who shows up. I'm going to narrow it down, so the person who shows up, number one, I know that they have a problem I can help them with, or they want to create an outcome that I can help them with. Number two, they know me well enough. And number three, they're coming to this call expecting that it may be free for the first one, but what we're doing is we're trying to evaluate whether we are a good fit for ongoing coaching. So the number of calls that I did went down dramatically, and that alone is going to increase your percentages, right? So if you don't waste time with 100 people to get 5 people to sign up, if you only talk to 8 people and 5 people sign up, not only is it a better use of your time and theirs, but it automatically by default increases the percentage of people who say yes to your offer. So qualifying who you accept into your calls is really important. And by qualifying, I mean that they know, like, and trust you, they have a relationship, they know what you do, and they're showing up with the same expectation that you have for an outcome. So I do this primarily through group calls, right? So through my webinars, my teleseminars, my free group coaching, whenever I offer those kind of opportunities, for me, that's a way of qualifying. That's a way of showing people what time spent with me in coaching would be like. And for those, and I'll drop hints. I'll often refer to things that are spiritual, so people who are spiritually inclined get the idea that, okay, I'm not just about business, right? There's a little bit of a different energy that I hold in my calls. And the hardcore, burn 'em, what do they call them? Churn 'em and burn 'em kind of business opportunist doesn't show up in my calls. The people that I get showing up at my calls are the ones that have a little bit higher vision for their business, that tend to want to make a contribution, have an impact. They want to do some, they want to transform, or they come from a place of adding value and service. So I don't have clients who show up, saying, how can I create like the next pet rock so I can rip people off $5 at a time. It's not about that. All my clients know that what I want to do is add value to the world and help people transform, and I want to make an impact. So these are the people that show up, because I use these words in all of my free calls. I use them in my emails to my list. I use them on my blog posts whenever I can. What does that mean? Some people are going to be really resonate with that, and others are going to think it's a little bit too ooey wooey. Either way, the people who don't resonate aren't showing up on my calls. So that's fantastic, right? So the only people who show up are the ones that self-select, that they get an opportunity to experience me and they say, yeah, that's my kind of coach. And then 9 times out of 10, they'll show up. They don't even want the free coaching call because they've had it through teleseminars and webinars and other things like that. And they just want to know, what programs do I have and how do they sign up? Okay, so that's how we get 8 or 9 people to say yes. And because sometimes pricing is an issue, or maybe I'll determine that they're not necessarily in a place yet to be able to get into the program that they want to get into. So we'll make other plans and so on. But qualifying them primary should be tops of your list, right? So I found that better, longer relationships result in more qualified, self-selected, pre-sold prospects. So what I encourage you to do is set up systems to build trust-based, value-added relationships with a larger audience, and then allow them to self-select into your one-to-one conversation. Okay, as I was mentioning earlier, your emails to your list, your blog posts, the engagements, your social media stuff, the free teleseminars and webinars that you do, those are all, in a sense, coaching consultations. Those can be all opportunities. Even if you work with one person, but there's 500 listening, in a sense, you're providing that coaching experience to 500 people. And you can set it up so that they ask you questions, and then you help multiple people on the call and so on. What you're doing in that 1 hour is you're allowing those people who are resonating with you and who are qualified to take advantage of your services. You're reaching a large audience instead of figuring it out one-on-one, what that group is. And so the people that are going to show up for you, you're allowing them to filter themselves through these events. So you're going to leverage the front end of your relationship building and your value add by doing it to groups, doing it to the largest groups possible, and to exposing it to as many different areas as you can, through your social media, through your blogs, through your email list, et cetera, et cetera. And what you will find is that if you then say, I'm taking on a client, or I offer these free coaching sessions or whatever, and you're doing that with a group of 50, 100, 500 people, then you might get 5 or 10 to show up. But guess what? Those 5 or 10 have selected themselves. They've identified themselves as people that you might be able to help. So they come prepared with the idea that, hey, you know what? I need help. I've seen what you can do. I think you can help me. Now tell me more about your programs. Right? So now selling doesn't become this dirty thing. It's what everybody wants, right? So it's really important that you build those longer term relationships, trust-based, value-added through all your email marketing and let's call it your mass promotions, right? So everything that you do to large groups, think about it as helping people self-select them into these conversations. And by the way, if you don't have this conversation as part of your marketing funnel, that's okay. So help them self-select onto your sales page or your sales video or your conversion teleseminar, whatever it might be. Okay, but the process is still important. This part, pre-selling or allowing prospects to pre-sell themselves, critically important, especially if you're spending your one-on-one time. So if you do this, you don't need to sell. You can just show up in a place of service and enroll people with the questions that allow them to come to their own conclusions about how they're going to benefit from you. They've already evaluated you, and they've come onto a number of calls. They've seen that you're an authority. They like your energy. They like what you stand for. You've taught them about what you've done with other clients and the results that they've gotten. And you've been a walking sales letter for 6 months for them through your teleseminars and webinars and blog posts and so on. So they've already decided that they want to work with you. Don't be surprised if they just show up and say, hey, you're the coach for me, or I want to know how to get into your workshop, or I heard you talking about that program, I want in, how do I do it? Right? Don't be surprised, because what you've been doing is you've been promoting and creating that relationship over time. You haven't been doing it one-on-one, but your goal is still create that relationship. So when they show up now, all you have to do is connect the dots for them. You don't have to sell anything. They've already sold themselves, and they're ready to buy. You don't have to do any selling. So if you're skittish about selling in any way, just remember, the more free opportunities you have to talk to a large group of people, the more likely that the qualified people who are ready to invest in you are going to show up in your one-to-one calls. And by the way, whether or not they're free or paid, right? Because believe it or not, it takes as much trust for most people to get on a free call with you, because it's a very personal one-to-one kind of situation. It takes as much trust and relationship as it does for them to pull out $97. It's weird, but I believe that to be true. Now, I mentioned that agreement on the agenda and the outcome is really important. This is a key success factor. It makes the entire discussion permission-based. Nobody's pulling the wool over anybody's eyes. Everybody's being honest and authentic and showing up in a safe space. And now it's not a sales call. Now it's a solution call. Now you're there to help them create solutions. And by the way, sales calls are okay. You've been in situations, I'm sure, where you're ready to buy something, and you'd be perfectly happy talking. Like, have you ever gone into a store and say, "Hey, can I talk to the salesperson about this?" Because you're ready to buy. So now you want to know what it's going to take to buy. So sales calls are okay. You don't have to be nervous or embarrassed about saying that that's what they are. Because for those people who are ready to buy, you want them to know that it's a sales call. So that's where they're going to show up, and then everybody's happy. They get what they want. You get what you want. So just be upfront about what it is that the purpose of the call is. Now, whether you're closing on the coaching request or the enrollment, right? So whether you're asking them to take action to move them forward, or whether you're asking them to invest in something, take a stand for your client. Don't let your fear about how good you are, or how good your product is, or if your price is too high, or whether they're going to accomplish anything. Don't let all that dialogue take you over and creep into the consciousness of the conversation, so that your client doesn't have the confidence to go forward. You take a stand for them. You put a flag in the ground and say, I know what you want to do, and I can help you to do that. And so you do everything you possibly can to stay firm and hold confident, so that when people try to let themselves off the hook, oh, I don't have time, or this won't work for me, or I don't know if I have the money, or whatever else, you don't let them off that easy. Right? So when you're asking them for the commitment for a coaching request, they might say, "Oh, I don't have the time," or "I don't know who I'd call," or "Yeah, I tried that, it didn't work before." That's you take a stand for them there, and you say, "Look, I hold a vision of you having achieved this outcome. I see you doing that. I believe you can, and I want to do everything I can to help you do that. And here's what I recommend we do. What are you willing to do? How can you solve this? What resources can you tap into?" I mean, as a coach, you're going to help them to figure out every possible way that they can get what they want. So if one of those ways is to invest in your products and services, don't cower, don't shrink, okay? Don't. It's not about you. You created those programs and those products and services to help that client, and they are there asking for help. They're nervous. They need to see your confidence. They need to see that you believe in them and that you believe in your solutions, and that's going to help them to take action for themselves. Okay, so don't allow your fears to get in their way. If you're enrolling from the call, then it's really important that you have a smooth, easy way to accept payment, make appointments, complete any agreements that you have to do. So, if you say, "Great, you're all ready to get started, so fill out this form and go to this website and get this back to me, and then I'll call you, and then you can sign this agreement back to me, and then we'll set up an account," forget it. Not going to happen, right? You should be able to complete everything you need to do on the call. So by the time they hang up, everything else is sent to them automatically. They just have to know what's coming, but they don't have to do anything. There's no more handshaking, no more they fill something out and get it back to you, you fill something out and get it back to them. Accomplish everything that you need to accomplish on the call, book the time, and then everything else, the going back and forth, is part of the deliverable if you're a coach, okay? So and if they buy your product, same thing. Don't say, "Well, I'm going to send you a link and you go to this website, and then let me know if you don't like PayPal," and no, none of that. You say, "If you're ready to get started, I'll take your credit card right now, and I'll sign you up, and you'll get an email with how to start using the program in about 5 minutes." Okay, so and that might mean you might have to change your payment process, or it might mean you have to change your sales process, your delivery process, whatever you need to do set up your flow so that's effortless and easy on the call. You need to be able to take the order, close the deal on the call. When somebody's ready to go, don't put don't put obstacles in their path. And then be authoritatively confident and competent, right? So, I mean, okay, and you're going to say, well, how do I do that? I'm just starting out. Well, you do it by doing it. You will become increasingly confident and increasingly competent as you do these things, right? The more you do, the more you work out a system, the more you work out the bugs, and the more you optimize it, and the easier you get, and the more confident and authoritative you're going to be about it. So you don't have to start off confident. Right? When you started riding a bike, you didn't know how to ride it. You fell off a few times. That's okay. You got back on and you continued better until you ride the bike effortlessly. You can ride with no hands even. So allow that also for you to develop as a coach or as a salesperson or a marketing person or whatever it might be. Just get, hold it in your intention that you want people to show up and feel like they're in good hands when they entrust themselves to you. That you know what you're doing, that you've got the systems to handle it, and they can trust you to help them with their outcomes. Now, we talked about this as so important. The more the call is about your prospect, the more likely you're going to achieve your stated outcome. So again, WAIT, why am I talking? Or shine the spotlight on them. Everything about your conversation has to come back to them, has to come back to their fears, frustrations, needs, and desires, their outcomes, their, the impact it's having on their lives, the things that they want to accomplish, their accountability, it has to be about them. And so if you're talking about yourself only as a way to highlight how it can help them, that's okay. But otherwise, focus the entire call, whether you're enrolling or whether you're coaching. It's not about you. That call is all about them. And I like to ask questions. I don't, I'm not one to sell hard. I mean, I like, of course, to inform and educate about the features and the benefits and how they work and how I think they'll help to create outcomes and so on. But I don't push. I'm not the kind of person that says, okay, you want to buy now? Okay, ready to buy now? Okay, should we order now? I just, I ask them questions and let them come to their own decisions. And of course, I will say, yeah, that sounds ready. So are you ready to move forward? But I won't say, you got to do this now, you got to buy this now. I will give them incentives. Oh, this is one thing that we didn't talk about that we should, that when you're on the call, it's always great to be able to say, listen, I really want to give you an incentive to make a decision now, to finally take action. And if you're willing to do this now, I have a special reward, special incentive for folks who are really ready to make a change. Here it is. So you can create a little incentive, a little scarcity, a little bit of excitement, whatever you call it. But you don't have to sell it hard. You can just tell people about it and let them choose if they're ready to act or not. Okay. So if you're a coach, if you're a yoga instructor, if you're a service provider, if you're wooey spiritual person like me, you don't have to be a hardcore sales guy. You don't have to be like a telemarketer to be successful here. You can be really sincere and honest and just ask questions and explain what you believe to be the features, the benefits, and so on, and just ask people, is there anything else you need to know? Is there something about this that isn't resolved yet? What else can I help you with? Have you got everything that you need to make a decision? Are you ready to take action? I mean, ask, don't sell, and you'll feel a lot more comfortable. People will buy in because they're making their own decisions, and any kind of internally motivated decisions are going to always last longer and likely to stick far more than if you persuade, influence, cajole, or manipulate them. So don't do that. Allow them to come to their own decisions, and they'll feel good about it. They'll rationalize it to themselves and to you, and the chances of them staying with it increase dramatically. Okay, so we talked about listen more than you talk, and so that's the next point on my list here. And then finally, this is really, really critically important. There's a tendency for us to think that because we understand how our features turn into benefits for them, or what our product does and how it's going to be important to them, we kind of assume that they'll get it. But when you talk, first of all, be in rapport, right? And what I mean by that is use their language to talk about their issues, and then connect the dots. So help them see how they can go from what they're experiencing now to what they want to experience as a direct result of a feature in your product. So don't just say, oh, our feature, this stuff is online, and delivered digitally. You want to say this product is delivered digitally so that you don't have to get up, get dressed, go to the gym, find a babysitter, fight with traffic, and so on. You can sit there in the comfort of your own home and you can watch it at your own convenience, which makes it more likely that you're going to do it, you're going to use it, and you're finally going to lose all that weight that you wanted to, have that fit, slim body. The only time you're going to have to get out of the house is to go buy those skinnier jeans. You know what I mean? So the fact that you have video streaming in and of itself is immaterial. And in your mind, you might know all the reasons you created that. But as you're talking with them, make sure that you're connecting the dots so that they can see that you designed a solution specifically to help them to move from where they are to where they want to be. Okay, so again, rapport, i.e. using their words and connecting the dots, showing them how your product and specific features of your product are designed specifically to help them accomplish their outcomes. Okay, and that's it for the presentation. So hopefully, we've covered a lot of ground here. So there's really kind of three sections throughout this, right? There's the enrollment part, there's the coaching part, there's the key success factors. And so you're probably going to want to go back and pick and choose the things that are relevant to what you want to accomplish. But what I'd like to do is take a few questions now. We don't have a lot of time. I'll take a few questions if anything's come up for you during this call, and then maybe we'll spend a little bit more time on Thursday digging a little bit deeper and maybe doing some case studies and some role plays and maybe just brainstorm about how you can use this in your marketing funnel to help you accomplish the goals that you have. Okay, so if you have a question, you can type it in the GoToWebinar control panel, or you can raise your hand with *2, and I'll open your line and we can talk live. Anthony says, excellent, Lou. I was nodding in agreement with a lot of the things you said because I'm going through it with my own consults now. Right, yeah, I think you inspired a lot of this conversation, Anthony, so thank you. I'm glad to hear that's resonating. One question about holding space and making the client feel comfortable and safe. What's a good book you can recommend on this? Oh, gosh, I already have Coactive Coaching. Man, Anthony, let me think about that. That's a really great question, and I don't think that I got it from just one book. I think this came to me over a lot of time, a lot of training, and a lot of different ways. So if you'll let me think on that and see if I can recommend some resources that will help you with that. I'll bring them to Thursday's call if I can, okay? Yeah, really good question. I'll have something for you Thursday. So Rich says, would you comment on the advantages of when to use Carefree Conference Call or GoToWebinar? Okay, so let's talk about this outside of this call since it's not really related to what we're talking about. Rich, if you wouldn't mind asking that on Thursday, I'd be happy to talk about that. And Lou, how do I do the mechanics of setting up a conference call like this? Okay, so again, not really related to the subject at hand, so let's talk about that on Thursday, Wesley. And what I would also recommend if you want, if you aren't already a member of carefreeconferencecalls.com, you guys, because you're in Action Coaching Club, you can take advantage of the offer that I have. Carefreeconferencecalls.com, by the way, in case you're not familiar with it, is my private label for Instant Teleseminar. And it's a little known secret. You can go to free trial. And it's a little known secret that the pricing that I offer and the packages that I offer here are what we would call grandfather pricing. In other words, this is what Instant Teleseminar used to offer before they changed their plan, and they're allowing me to keep the old plan. So you'll find you get a lot more lines for a lot less here, and I also give you 3 months instead of 1 to use the system. So one of the best ways that I can answer your call is to say, try it. Go in here and try it. There's actually video tutorials that'll walk you through and show you exactly how to set up these calls, because I mean that's just technology, and it's all here if you want to do it that way. If not, I mean, I can walk through it with you, but I always like to recommend that you do things hands-on, and this is a great way to do it. 3 months, try it for free. You can start for as little as $27 a month, and what you'll find is that this not only gives you great conferencing, but it gives you the whole process to record, to replay, to manage your events, the whole thing. You couldn't do it. You couldn't hire a virtual assistant for $30 an hour, much less $30 a month, to do the things that this does for you automatically. And by the way, what you can't see here, this talks about 20-line conference calls, but you get 2,000 lines of webcast. even as part of the smaller package with my private label only. So that means you can literally, for $27 a month, support conferences for up to 2,000 people online. They don't even have to dial in. They can just listen over your PC speakers. Okay, so I might recommend you try that. And if you want to ask me more questions specifically about the technology or the methodology, we can certainly do that on Thursday. What's the ideal time for an enrollment call? I don't think I have an ideal time. It's really, you know, I do it whenever. I have two ways that I do it. Number one is I have certain times in my calendar set up that's convenient for me to do the calls, and I prefer to get people to do it on my schedule. And then on the rare chance that I can't fit it into my schedule, then I'll try to adapt and make it at a time that's convenient to them as well. You know, what I found is if you give people the option, then you're going to be changing your schedule like crazy, trying to adapt to everybody else's schedule, and that's challenging, especially if you're doing a lot of these calls. What I prefer to do is I'll show you the tool that I use. In fact, it's a service. This used to be free, it's not anymore, but it's, you know, you can get started for as little as $19 a month. It's a thing called genbook.com. And so what I do, by the way, there's a bunch of free services like this that are coming out that you might consider as well. I just happen to like the interface that these guys offer. So even when they went from free to, you know, $19 a month, I decided to upgrade and pay. But what this will do is it'll allow you to block out the times that you want to make available for those calls, and you give people a link to them and they'll just book themselves into the time that's available for you. That's the primary way I do it. I'll allocate time on my calendar specifically for that purpose, and I'll give people a link to that calendar so they can book themselves in on one of the times that I make available. It's just a whole lot easier for me to manage my schedule that way. And then if they say, I don't see anything on your calendar that suits me, then I might, you know, work with them to find another time that works for both of us. But generally speaking, it's really about fitting into my calendar. And Wesley says, thank you. You're welcome, Wesley. I hope you'll give that Carefree conference call a try. You know, it's kind of interesting that there were like 3 questions about webinars versus Carefree conference calls. I wonder what was it about the training tonight that inspired those, I wonder. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any more questions, so it seems like a pretty good time to wrap things up. I hope that you know, you've got lots of good ideas, and most of all, I hope you're inspired to use this process in your marketing funnel. It is really effective. It's not something that you want to do forever. I mean, you know, you don't want your marketing to be one-on-one, of course, but especially if you're just getting started, and especially if you're starting a coaching practice, this is really phenomenal. You know, it's a great way to learn about your market. It's a great way to get your services started. In fact, I have a client who started this process and now is so full, his coaching practice is so full that we're moving to phase 2 of the plan, which is great. Now that you know who your avatars are, and you know, he's got almost an 80% conversion on these calls. He's got a waiting list and he's totally full. But this is the perfect time now to take everything he's learned and create a product out of it. And so that's what we're doing next. So we filled up his practice. He's 100% full, overfilled. And then now he's got the basic core income of his coaching business going. And now we're going to look at turning it into a product or a workshop perhaps, where we can serve 10, 50, 100 times the people with the same hour or 2 that he spends doing one-to-one. So really, really an interesting way to get your business kick-started. Give it a try. You know, I highly recommend that you integrate this into your marketing process. Cynthia says, could you please repeat that last name? Tell me more about what was that last name for, Cynthia. I don't remember which one it is. Xu Ling says, yes, thank you. Is this conference call your private label or GoToWebinar? Actually, what we're doing here is a combination. Because of the quality of the audio that I can get and because of the level of interaction that Carefree Conference Calls provides, I do audio on Carefree Conference Calls, but I'm doing the presentation visuals on GoToWebinar. And in fact, if it wasn't for the fact that I have to that I like to do things like this, where I'll go online and I'll in real time surf over to a web page, or sometimes I like to draw pictures on the screen and show you that. For that, I need GoToWebinar. But if I didn't need to do that, if all I was doing was showing you presentation slides, I wouldn't even need GoToWebinar. I could do it all through Carefree Conference Calls. Gina says, about people asking about webinars, you talked about people self-selecting through group events like webinars. Ah, gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Right. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about that on Thursday. I'll spend 15-20 minutes at the beginning of the call talking about webinars, teleseminars, and some of the tools and resources that I use. Pia, thanks. Very inspiring. Sounds like a good way to start. Excellent. Cynthia says, about carefreeconferencecalls.com. Oh, after carefreeconferencecalls.com. Oh, well, it's on your screen, I think, Cynthia. I think I was talking about genbook.com. You know what? You can always go back and listen to the recording. If I'm not remembering now, you could just go replay it. I think, Genbook. Yeah, Cynthia, there it is. It's on your screen. Genbook. GENBOOK.com. That's what it was. Wesley says, Lou, it was the fact that you did a great job, and I'm offering my first conference call Wednesday night. Excellent. Hey, congratulations, Wesley. That's great. Thank you again, and have a good evening. Same to you. And by all means, let Carefree Conference Calls take care of you as you do your first conference call. Hey, look who's back. Mahalo to you too as well, Helena. Good to have you here. Okay. So that sounds like we've gone through all of the main questions. Everyone else is being nice and giving me some positive feedback, some acknowledgement. I always appreciate that. Thank you so much. But I'm not seeing any more questions. So let's wrap it up for today, and I'll look forward to catching up with you on Thursday. We'll talk a little bit about teleseminars and webinars on Thursday, but then it'll be all Q&A live coaching call. Thanks for being here. Your being here allows me to do this work, which, as you know, is fun and fulfilling for me. And that's all possible because you show up. So thanks for showing up. Go out there and serve a lot of people, have a lot of fun, make a lot of money, and we'll see you on the next call Thursday. Thank you. Bye for now. Namaste.